multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. Joel 3:14. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of this video is entitled Common Law Living and COVID Era. And the message: many persons living in common law relations who are being afflicted by COVID or those concerned may need ministerial intervention for conscience sake. Common law living has become so common that its practice eclipses the truth about marriage God ordained at creation, and warns that man should not put asunder or tear apart or divide into pieces, according to the dictionary. Common law, or trial marriage, as the social scientist calls it, is one of the solutions advocated by psychologists and family life practitioners in dealing with the problem of divorce. Interview highlights common law living as a deep tradition among many villages and districts of our region. Some perceptions of couples in common law include: we live first, then marry after. But for many, marriage is not just around the corner, but could be a lifetime in some cases. However, there are some levels of faithfulness in some of these unions, even among the young. But interestingly, marriage is always there in the mind, even if you do not hear of any. Another interesting discovery found among persons living in common law is that they must build a house and stock it nice and then marry. In other cases, common law relations are ever saving. Persons in common law relations are ever saving to buy a ring and dress and drinks to feast. In one case, an engagement ring and a wedding ring had to be bought, and the cost of the wedding ring was $2,000, and that was in 1997. In many cases, common law living is bread and butter for many mothers whose child father or children's father and husbands have abandoned them. Still, for others, common law living is bad habit. Some men are just playing a game of sex spree, running women and exploiting them as sex objects of pleasure, but not intending to give anything to the relationship. I am sure that there are many more interesting cases to comment about common law, but the focus of the presentation is not so much to elaborate on common law cases, but to aim at developing responsibility and action among those living in common law. All human beings living on earth, and in particular, all who intend to live with God in His kingdom, both now and in the hereafter, need to understand this fundamental principle. Common law living is cultural, and its standard is below the standard of marriage God set forth for the citizens of earth at the creation in the Garden of Eden. As is recorded in Genesis 2:18 and 21 to 24, of which nations adopt their legal code for marriage. And so we shall look at the text. Genesis 2:18, 21 to 24. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an help meet for him." And the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And God took of his ribs, one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh thereof. And the Lord and the rib which the Lord had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." Therefore, or for this reason, shall a man leave his father and mother, and cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Now let us look at the discussion, and the critical areas we are going to look at is 1. God and the personal dimension of marriage. And under that, we are going to look at the phrase woman as helpmeet to man, analyzed from the text and psychology. And then we are going to look at marriage, sexual intercourse as one flesh, and then C, deviant sexual behaviors that God do not like. And number 2, Caesar and personal responsibility. And under that, we will look at the formal legal marriage contract. So let us now start with the critical analysis, God and the personal dimension of marriage, text analysis and psychological input. According to the text in Genesis 2:21 to 24, and therefore God's standard of marriage, a man and a woman must come together for sexual intercourse in marriage, where the woman becomes the helpmeet to the man as his wife. And the man must be proud of this event, as Adam voiced in verse 23, with a tone of dignity and delight and deep down satisfaction and joy. "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," as God handed over the woman to the man to initiate marriage and the family institution. So now we are going to look at a woman as helpmeet. All right? And we are basically going to analyze the text for need satisfaction of man. And first we look at the biological positives, right? The biological positives. Now, Adam had X amount of ribs. That's the total. And one of his ribs, or man's rib, was taken out to make the woman Eve at creation. So now we see that there's a companion need here, because one of the rib is in the woman. So the man has to search to find this companion or this wife. That is if he wants a wife. And in Proverbs we are told, whoso finds a wife obtaineth favor of the Lord. Alright? And so he has to search. And I want to iterate here that incest is not the missing rib of the man. According to Leviticus 18, that's one of the deviant sexual behaviors that God does not like. Alright, you have to search. So then if you must search, you must know yourself, understand your need, and look to find you a wife that will fit. Okay? Then we have the genetics. The parts represent the whole. Now, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh could also be interpreted rib of my ribs. Alright, and flesh of my flesh. Now, Adam was created first with the whole genetic bodily contents. So God just took a representative part, one rib, that contains the genetic makeup to replicate the genetic content of the woman. So there you have an identity need of man. Well, it's what goes for the goose goes for the gander too, eh? But you have this identity need here, which is a similar makeup, alright? And so there are two things I want to highlight. One is the need to produce an offspring that look like me. So God gave Adam the sperm and he gave the woman the egg, and both of them put together, as far as Adam is concerned, is a little me. So basically men like children, well, for the most part, we know. And so when a man marries, he would like to have children. So if you know you don't want to have children, let the man know that early, okay? And the other one I want to look at is the energy need, and here, which is a complementary relationship. And now we will want to look at, go to psychology to get some help here. And we have this chart. It was written by Linda Field, 1997, in her book Self-Esteem for Woman, A Practical Guide to Love, Intimacy and Success. It's a good book. I bought it on the airport in Trinidad and Tobago in, I think, 2012. Alright? It's a good book. Very informative. Now, Linda talks about, Linda is a therapist, a psychotherapist. Deals with a lot of personalities. And in the book, she talks about the inner female and the inner male that is present in the human being. So she has 10 inner female and inner male energies, and it is both present within the man and within the woman. So you know, it goes against some of that cultural, well, it goes against some of our cultural thinking that men have one role and women have another role. Alright, what you find is both of them have the same thing. So since the energies are present in both man and woman, you can look at it when you have time, make the video bigger and look at it, expand it. Since both the energies, the male and the female sets of energies are present in male, in both man and woman, roles or preferences is determined by home training, culture or society, extended society, and your personal perception. So the question is, who decides, right? That will be the question. The home, the society, the individual, or God. Now, since we are looking at the personal, God and the personal dimension, if we look at the personal and God, then the two, both the man and the wife, should discuss and decide on who should do what when there is their task. Alright? And we're talking about this task, anything to do with house and otherwise. Who could do what best? Alright, because you will have some people might be stronger on the female side, some people might be stronger on the male side, and some people might be in between. So when the good thing in terms of communication would be to discuss and decide, look at the talents and abilities, who could do what best. And you also have chopping in and helping across. You learn to do other skills and so forth that could add to motivation. And in case of emergency, when one partner is not able to do, the other person can come in and perform the role, and so you have that complementary relation rather than saying this is for you and that is for me. Okay, so putting the energies and abilities, the gifts and the talents together to achieve the task. So the act of pushing persons into modes could be choking, and you can get things like resistance. You can get people being sick and tired of doing the same thing. You could have rejections in your relationship. You could have people could experience repression. You could give up on personal worth. You can have things like adultery, homosexuality, abandonment, anxiety, and even death. Alright? So we must let persons feel free to exercise their creativity in relation to tasks. And we must also be prepared to unlearn and learn new and better ways for the benefit of the relationship success. So when you look at this, and as I said, you are going to take your time and expand the video and see it, you will realize that God is not your problem. Alright? God is not the problem. As we go on further, we will realize when we come to the second part that the problem may very well be how the society puts it. Okay, so remember this. We both have inner energies of male and female, and we can use them and should use them in complementary ways. I have found Jesus, for example, to have a lot more of the female energies, with his compassion and his nurturing and so on, and his understanding that he gave to people, and forgiveness and all this kind of thing, and feeding the multitude and so forth. Now the next word I want to look at is intuition. That's another one we can deduce from the text, and it's also part of the chart. mind and intuition, mind and spirit. You saw it in poetic and lyrical spontaneity. He didn't have to think, it just came forth as Adam saw the man, he beheld, see, she shall be called woman, taken out of man, lyrically speaking, man and woman rhyming. And if you notice, the woman is carrying the man. Now, so Adam, man, woman is like me. We could relate to each other. We can talk, we can work, we can have adventure, we can motivate each other. So there you have the understanding and the communication needs. All right. So now let us see some emotions. Let us see some emotions we saw in the text. Some that we saw. We saw excitement and joy. You know, Adam was excited at seeing the woman. He was very joyful, and so then you hear him talking nice. And we had happiness and satisfaction, and there was understanding, you know, in the form of this poetic expression. All right, so we see a lot of the affect or the heart needs, the mind and the spirit. All right, so some of these needs. That's what we saw in terms of the emotion, that those emotions brought out that. But let us see what we did not see or hear. What we did not see or hear. Now, I didn't see any ego or power. I didn't see that. I didn't hear any foul language. I didn't see any evidence of bodily abuse. I didn't see any bribe. I didn't hear any bribe. I didn't see no gaming. I didn't see any role preference. Alright? And we didn't hear anything about roles. We didn't see any reference to any possession or property. So what we really saw, as I said, God is not our problem. God set forth marriage in elemental bareness, relating to the wholeness of the person or the individual. There were no fringe benefits. Alright? So now let us go to the second point. Marriage and sexual intercourse as one flesh. Now notice this specific condition for becoming one flesh. It says in verse 24, therefore, which is the same as for this reason, shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. According to God, in Genesis 2:18 and 21 to 24 in particular, marriage is a one flesh union between a man and a woman called his wife. Consummated, or the point at which something is complete or finalized, according to Oxford, in sexual intercourse. For this reason shall a man leave his father and mother, verse 24, and live with his wife, for the satisfaction of these need areas, the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, the wholeness. And what goes for the goose here will have to go for the gander, because man was the one missing the ribs, so he has to find the wife. But they didn't tell us that the woman was missing any rib. So this is for both of them. So marriage is a holy act which pleases God, according to Hebrew 13:4. The other places where the marriage bed is described as being undefiled, honorable, and holy or pure, and should be kept that way. So let us look now at some deviant behaviors, sexual behaviors that God does not like. And according to Jesus in Mark 5 to 9, I think, Jesus, these we can apply that these sexual deviant behaviors result from the hardness of man's heart, right? So now Mark 10:9. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder, tear apart, or divide into pieces. This it creates a distortion of the sexual energy and mind, and it creates problems when brought into the marriage relationship. And then there is need for proper education and thought cleansing before one actually gets into the union. So now Mark 5, 9 and 10, 9 to 10 says, it's actually a repeat of Genesis 2, 21 to 24. And Jesus said unto them, now, for the hardness of your heart, he was making reference to Moses, giving the children, giving the people divorce permission. The Pharisees had come to question Jesus or tempt him concerning divorce. And I noticed that in many of the cases when they came to tempt Jesus, we got a lot of information that we probably would not have known before. So we have this universal application that we can apply to all of these deviant behaviors as a result of the hardness of the heart. Alright? So he said the rest of the verses go back to Genesis 2, 24, 2 to 21, 24. And wherefore, but the last verse 9 says, what therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder or tear apart into pieces. Alright, he was referring to divorce here, but by the principle of the hardness of the heart, we're going to be applying it across the board. So let us look up some of those sexual deviant behaviors that God does not like. Forced sexual activity. Deuteronomy 22, 28 to 30. Alright. And if a man had forced himself onto a woman and he was caught, he had to pay the bride price. Okay? Rape, we're going to see that bride price coming up again. Rape, Deuteronomy 22, 25. Incest, sexual activity with near family relation. Okay? Secret sexual content, secret consent to sexual activity outside of the family and Caesar's formal marriage. Alright, and if they were caught, they would be stoned. So this secrecy and hiding and committing sexual intercourse, that God does not like that. Promiscuity, multiple sexual partners. Alright, prostitution, sex as a business, fornication. And this matter of fornication concerns, it is not the same limited context that they tell us sexually, just sex out of marriage. It contains it is called sexual immorality, containing all the sexual practices that was done in idolatry. Alright, adultery included. So adultery, I'm going to highlight a bit as on the next slide on fornication. Adultery, that's sexual activity outside of the marriage relation. Pornography, having sexual intercourse with beasts, and homosexuality. We'll have a whole video, homosexuality and the law, among my videos. And so let's look at this matter of fornication. Now, the statejournal.com and on what is the correct meaning of fornication in the Bible talks or gives two words, one Hebrew, one Greek. Zana, which is the Greek, and porneia, which is Zana, which is the Hebrew, and porneia, which is the Greek, which refers to the sin of fornication or idolatry. That's idol worship. Fornication is associated with the worship of heathen idols, many of which had rituals that involved forms of deviated sexual intercourse. So, and fornication is included as illicit sexual conduct, which include prostitution, unlawful conduct, unlawful contact, or being unchaste. And in Leviticus 18, we have a summary of some of these unlawful sexual contacts. And so, to the extent to which we find these behaviors in the society, we can question ourselves as to what extent we do have idol worship in our society, because that whole deviant area is related to idol worship, that orgy, when they get together among themselves secretly, they have this orgy, this ecstatic singing and dancing and repetitive, and the possession of the spirits and so forth in their midst, and you cause them to do all kind of things with their bodies in honor of their gods, right? Which was their false god. We see some of these things on the TV sometimes, but so therefore you see, sometimes we are wondering with the complexities of some of these things that happen to our children and other people, but it is all as a result of the deep-rootedness of idol worship. So now we need to understand that sexual intercourse was marriage in Israel. Some of these things you don't find them in the Bible, these deviant, that we know, like promiscuity and so. And even common law.